Judiciary was introduced by Lord Cornwallis from 1786 to 1793. He was Governor-General and his most notable work was in the field of criminal judicature. As we know, the third branch or arm of every government is the judiciary. Its aim is to distinguish the three primary roles of government in order to ensure justice and equality for all. The judiciary is an important government organ that, by explaining and determining its true meaning, mainly administers the law. In Malaysia, the history of judicial was developed in early 1807. In 1957, Malaysia eventually achieved its desired independence and the federal constitution was brought into existence in 1963.
The concept of judicial independence, in simple words, is an ability to the courts and judges to work freely from any influence of political or non-political parties. The decision made by judiciary is not influenced by the external parties. In carrying out its duties, the judiciary must work efficiently, fairly, and impartially in accordance to the law. It is essential in order to avoid the lack of support from the public, as they feel less confident towards the integrity of judicial, and also to avoid the centralization of power from legislative and executive. Now, we move further to the factors to ensure the independence of judiciary as stated in the Malaysian Federal Constitution. The first factor is insulation of power from political and external parties. The judiciary, in exercising its functions, must be free from the influence of government and as well the social. When there are intervention from outside parties, it can result to the inability of judiciary to make a decision as it is under the control and pressure of these parties. As mentioned in the Malaysian Federal Constitution under Article 127, the Parliament is restricted from questioning or discussing the conduct of the judges. This article shows that the judges can act freely without being fear of the government. The second factor stated in the Federal Constitution is the appointment of the judges and his qualification. The appointment is done by the YDPA, who acts on the advice of the Prime Minister. Although the Prime Minister, who is the member of executive, interferes to the judicial matter, his power is limited. This is because Article 2 until 4 provide the Prime Minister to consult the head of the three courts, Federal Court, Court of Appeal, and the High Court before appointing the judges. For instance, to appoint the judges of Federal Court other than the Chief Justice, the Prime Minister shall first consult the Chief Justice. This shows that the judiciary still have the power to involve in the appointment of the judges. In terms of qualification, before appointing as a judge of Federal Court, Court of Appeal, and High Court, he must be a citizen and has been active in the legal service for minimum 10 years. The third factor is judicial tenure and termination. The judges hold the office until they reach the age of retirement, which is 66 years old, as stated in Article 125, Clause 1. Once his appointment, he cannot be removed or terminated at the will of anyone, whether the legislative or executive. However, if the judge commits crimes or breach the Code of Ethics, the YDPA may establish the tribunal to remove the judge. In some cases, where the Chief Justice does not think that the judge is necessary to the tribunal, he can refer to a body constituted under federal law. The last one is the remuneration. Throughout his career, the judges must receive a fixed and adequate salary to avoid bribery and corruption. The remuneration of judges, including the pension, cannot be altered in accordance with the provision of Article 125, Clause 7. Also, the remuneration provided shall be charged under consolidated fund. The first impact of independence of judiciary is to provide check and balance to executive and legislative branch and vice versa. In the Malaysian context, the federal constitution, the doctrine of separation of powers is clearly stated. Accordingly, the federal constitution of Malaysia provides assurances that the judiciary is independent from any control or interference of the executive branch and the legislature branch. In regards to an independent judiciary, it is to provide check and balance to the other two branches. It acts as a measure against the misuse or to a certain extent abuse of power by the executive and legislative branch. The next impact of independent judiciary is a credible and trustworthy justice system. The judiciary being an independent branch means it is able to perform to its own duties without the influence and coercion of the executive and legislative branches. In the application of a separation of power, judges appointed are not a part of the executive. The judges must be independent in performing their duties so that they are able to make a decision that is free from other branches according to the laws and evidences that has been provided and through their justification. In that manner, the citizen of the country can be confident of a credible and trustworthy justice system. The last impact of independent judiciary is nobody is above the law. The Federal Constitution of Malaysia is the highest law in the land for the country. According to the late Tun Muhammad Sufyan bin Muhammad Hashim, Sufyan, who used to serve as the Chief Justice of Malaya in Ahtian versus Government of Malaysia in 1976, 2 MLJ 112 stated that the doctrine of the supremacy of parliament does not apply in Malaysia. Here, we have a written constitution. The power of a parliament and of state legislatures in Malaysia is limited by the constitution, and they cannot make any law they please. The federal constitution provides that itself is supreme and not the parliament. All the safeguards in place in the federal constitution under the separation of powers between the executive, legislative, and judiciary ensures an independent judiciary. Therefore, judges are able to pass judgments that are free from coercion or outside influence. This enables the judiciary to ensure that no one, regardless of creed, stature, background, the common people, the executive, the legislative, anyone for that matter, is above the law. Nobody is above the law.
As conclusion, hereby it is clearly that judiciary is so important to each state with democratic system. Broadly speaking, the judiciary is an institution that carry out the duty of justice to give right to those who are entitled. The legislative, executive, and judiciary play an important role in maximizing the power available to form a nation capable of achieving peace and harmony.